Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, this is the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston at defeatyourcravings.com. And I am here with one of my favorite people, Kimberly. Kim is one of our best success stories and one of our former master coaches and one of our biggest fans and someone who teaches me things all the time from her experimenting in the field. She's also the meme queen. She's always sending memes, which are pretty cool. Kim, how are you today?
Good. How are you, Glenn?
I'm good. I'm getting over a flu, so I don't think I sound like James Earl Jones anymore. If I occasionally cough or sneeze, please know I'm not dying. So you had something you wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, I do. Basically, in a nutshell, this past winter, starting in January, I ended up with an emergency surgery. And without going into details, it was a big deal and it was really scary. And I was in the hospital almost a week, and then I got out, and then there was all kinds of protocols from my doctors to follow as I healed. A lot of stuff surrounding food and digestion and that kind of thing. And then as soon as I felt better, I ended up with another totally unrelated health issue. And then when I felt better from that, we ended up going on a trip somewhere. And then when I felt better with that, I got involved in a big political skirmish here in my small town that was local politics. It just seems to me that it's been one thing after another. And from a food and eating standpoint and being healthy, I gained almost 10 pounds. I mean, it's been almost 6 months, so it's not an extreme amount of weight, but it's mostly that I can't seem to get my feet under me. It seems like in the past, whenever there was a crazy holiday or a crazy event in my life, or maybe a trip or a vacation, I'd have a week to kind of do what I call re-entry. Re-entering my normal life and getting on track, so to speak, or back on track, or reassessing my rules or whatever, reassessing what I need. And I just haven't had time or like enough of a break in the action. So I'm wondering what you recommend. What do you recommend for people going through a crazy time? And even though they're solid and they know this stuff inside and out and they've been very successful, like myself, they're finding themselves floundering. And it's an unusual situation for me, at least in the last 4 years, to be floundering, but I feel like I am.
I don't know if I describe what you're describing as floundering. It sounds like you've slipped a little bit. Are you binging every day?
There haven't really been binging. It's more that we often tell people that if you're in a situation that you did not predict, that you didn't plan for, make your best choice within that situation for feeding yourself or whatever your activities are. Stick as close to your rules as you possibly can. And what I'm feeling like is that that's happening on a nearly daily basis for me right now, where I'm making the best out of a bad situation. I can't really say it's like major binging or anything. It's more just little breaks in the rules, like little ones every day.
It erodes your confidence over time. So it is something you want to address. Be accurate about it, so that you don't let your inner pig beat you down.
Which I'm fighting tooth and nail. I've been refuting the heck out of, and that's been the interesting part too, is that so many things with the pig that I had completely defeated, I'm hearing little whisperings or rumblings, of those thoughts that are kind of defeating thoughts. This is hopeless. I just can't seem to get back to where I was.
I have some thought, but if you want to ask me a more specific question, I could address it.
Okay, cool.
If you're used to a certain kind of a workout, then you get the flu, you have to adjust the workout that you're going to do. Sometimes it means not working out at all for a couple of days, right? You can't expect to do the same workout that you can do when you're healthy when you're sick, right?
Right.
If you get a flu, it's usually, 5 days, 10 days, and then you kind of gradually work your way back and you have time to re-enter and recover. If you got a flu followed by bronchitis, followed by, long COVID, then you might have to make some adjustments in the long term that you don't really want to make because you really miss doing those great workouts and you feel better when you're working out at the top of your game. And some people don't accept the reality of that. They keep the bar just as high as it was. They try to work out as intensely as they were before they got sick. And if your assessment of your life is that right now there are just too many relentless things going on to work out or to follow the food plan that you were following, I think we should make some significant adjustments and figure out what food plan you can follow, for the 6 months or so that it's going to be before things slow down and you can get back to quote unquote normal, so to speak. That's my first intuition about what you're describing. Have you thought of that? What do you think?
I think that is one of the biggest squeals I'm dealing with. I mean, quite obviously, my situation, despite the fact that it's feeling relentless and it's been one thing after another, and that's been going on for some months now, I know it's temporary. There are certain things I'm dealing with right now that I absolutely know will be resolved by this fall. It's going to be kind of a crazy summer, but once the summer is over, there are certain things that will be resolved. And if I resist something that I often have a hard time resisting, which is to make things more complicated, if that makes any sense, like, oh, this fall I'll be able to take on 12 other projects because these things will be resolved. If I can not do that, I know this time will come to an end. But that is one of the squeals that I keep saying is, this is life. It's relentless. It's never going to get any easier. You should just give up.
That's your pig. That's not you, right?
Of course. Oh, of course. Yeah, I know the pig's voice immediately. It's something that I tell people to do too when they're struggling is go back to refuting the way you did when you were first learning how to refute, when it was an exciting new skill and you had fun with it. I mean, at least I hope people have fun with it. I have fun with it, listening to the most ridiculous squeals and then addressing them. And it can actually be somewhat amusing. But at any rate, I've been getting back to that. I've been refuting like crazy and kind of uncovering some of the little hidden feelings or thoughts that pop into my head and recognizing them as the pig and that kind of thing. So that's been probably the most helpful.
That's a good thing to do, but it sounds like you're refuting them against the same target you've always had. I wonder what you would think. Okay, so first of all, it sounds like the pig is taking a temporarily accurate perception of relentlessness in your life and trying to exaggerate it and make it like this is how it's going to be forever, so you should just binge. Sounds like you're on top of that. I wonder what you would think if there's no medical emergency to lose the weight. Do you have to lose the 10 pounds right away? Is there a medical reason?
No, actually, I'm still within what we would call normal range. Like if you look up those height and weight charts, gaining 10 pounds has not pushed me well out of like, oh, okay, now you're really overweight.
What would you think about creating a plan that won't take the 10 pounds off, but we'll just keep things under control between now and the fall, and then tackling weight loss as your first project in the fall?
There's something about that that feels like relief. You know how when you're doing a job or you're involved with a group or something and you think, gosh, this has really become a huge obligation and way too much work. And then you start debating what would happen if you quit. Instead of going, oh my God, I would miss that and I would miss those people, you just have that overwhelming feeling of, oh, that would be such a relief. And I'm having that feeling right now. I did not expect to, and I did not expect you to make this suggestion. I'm liking this and I'm actually learning something new instead of second guessing what you're going to say.
I think you would tell a client the same thing I'm telling you. Sometimes you just need an outside perspective to really see what's going on.
Oh, yeah. And take our own advice.
Sometimes it's hard to see your own advice. You can't lift yourself up by your own shirt collar. Sometimes you need the leverage of an outsider to figure that out. So I'm honored that you would be vulnerable enough to talk about this publicly and let me help you with that. It seems like a pretty simple solution to me. How would you adjust your plan if you were not going to lose weight this summer?
I would probably start building into my daily plan because one of my rules that I've had kind of forever is that I eat 3 meals a day, no snacks, and I plan each morning what I'm going to eat. I think if I made my daily plan a little looser, I would feel a lot more successful because it would be a plan that I could stick with. Instead of writing down, this is what I'm eating for breakfast, and then we end up in some ridiculous meeting in the morning, and breakfast ends up being really, really late, and blah, blah, blah. And that's the kind of stuff that's been going on. And then I end up choosing foods that are not exactly what I planned. I think because of the 10 pounds I've gained, that the perfectionist pig has kicked in, and it's sort of like either I'm perfect or I'm nothing. That's the first thing I think of is if I stopped focusing on losing this 10 pounds and if I focused on just maintaining, well, when I'm in maintenance mode, I'm much easier on myself. I'm not perfectionistic because the only goal is to not gain a bunch of weight, to not binge. Other than that, I'm just living my life. But because I'm carrying this little extra weight, there's that perfectionist pig.
I know the things you've been through, particularly one of them, and I know is a really, really, really big deal. And I
Mhm.
wonder if you couldn't just be proud of yourself for not gaining more than 10 pounds in 6 months.
I've been thinking about that, and I like that. It could have been a lot worse, especially with the medical stuff, because they had me eating in such a way. And when I say they, the doctor, there's a dietitian involved, blah, 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 that was wildly not the way I normally eat. And that was rough. It could have been a lot worse. Absolutely.
They disrupted everything. I think you're doing great. I have as much faith in you as I always did. And I think this is a really simple adjustment to maintenance mode so you can recover your equilibrium over the next couple of months while life is difficult. You know how to lose 10 pounds.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
my only caveat with that would be if the doctor said you had to lose weight, but it sounds like they don't at all.
No, they don't care about my weight, which is really awesome because I'll tell you, when I look back on various, health problems or just a regular annual checkup from years ago, from back when I was really quite obese, the idea of going into a doctor's office and not having them immediately want to talk to me about my weight, that still feels new. And that is still like really fun to be like, oh, I went in and we talked about all kinds of things. And especially at my age, the latest thing is them wanting to do various screenings or tests or whatever because I've reached that age and that kind of thing. But they don't bring up my weight at all. It's kind of cool.
That's wonderful. Does your pig have anything to say about going into maintenance mode over the summer?
Not anything that I can't address. I mean, it's the usual stuff that I immediately think of, like, oh, you're going to gain more weight. If you don't keep pounding on this and pounding on yourself and being annoyed with yourself, you're just going to gain weight. That concept of if I'm not driven with this problem, then I'm going to relax too much. And it's like, no, that's absolutely not true. I weigh myself every day. It's not like I'm going to start skipping weighing myself. I mean, that's an ingrained habit to weigh myself each day. So obviously, if I gained a couple pounds more, we might need to talk again, or I might need to revisit it, but that's not going to happen. It's not going to get suddenly out of control. I'm not going to be calling you next week and saying, okay, now I gained 50 pounds. So it is
Well,
funny to me how pig squeals can come back up at various times in our lives when we had pretty much vanquished them and they were done. It can pop back, like a memory or a trigger.
I forget the exact quote, but Nietzsche said something like, when we are fatigued, we are besieged by ideas that we long ago conquered.
You recently did a little writing about that.
I did a little writing about it. Yeah. The squeals that we conquered when we were in our right frame of mind and very well self regulated and had access to our regular food inventories and routines and workout routines and people and social support. The idea is that the squeals that were no big deal to conquer, suddenly when you are out of town and facing surgery and all these other things that dysregulate your life, they can come back and bother you again. The answer is usually the same.
Yeah.
It's the same answer, but is combined with even more of an emphasis on self-regulation and being kind to yourself about the target, not trying to hit too high a bar when life is dysregulating. Do you have any questions or concerns or anything that you wanted to ask me or tell me about or
No, this is awesome. I got a whole new focus to think about this idea of instead of having this repetitive thought of, I got to lose this weight, I got to lose, I got to lose, I got to lose, instead saying, I will address that in September. Let's just get through the rest of this crazy time.
Just maintain.
I love that. That feels good. And it feels doable and it feels like relief.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.